Okay, is everybody having fun tonight? Alright, you heard me say my name is Rich. That's a nickname for Richard. And with that name, I really feel pretty lucky to be in the age group I am. Because, men who I knew who were maybe 10 or more years older than me named Richard, at that time, the most usual nickname for it was Dick. And, obviously that name has taken on connotations that it never used to have. And because I work in archives, I review a lot of old documents. And every now and again I learn about what some of those connotations were, or are. Because particular, I remember reading a letter written in the 1930s. The writer was a middle-aged man named Richard. He had a teenage son named Richard, and he was writing to a friend of his who also had a son named Richard. And so anyway, after the beginning greetings, as would be usual of a guy that age, the first thing he starts talking about to his friend is his son. And so in the beginning of this paragraph, he writes, you would not even recognize my dick now. He's grown 6 inches in just the last year. And if your dick isn't growing at the same pace, I'm sure he will be pretty soon. My dick's as tall as I am now, so nobody can call us Big Dick and Little Dick anymore. But, that wasn't the end of it. He then starts reminiscing about the past, and he writes on to his friend, I'll never forget when you came to visit when the boys were just 5 years old. My dick had so much fun playing with your dick. For days afterward, all he was asking about was when he could play with your dick again. And later that same summer, George and his family came for a visit, and I encouraged him to play with George's dick. But when kids are that young, a 2-year age gap is really just a bit too much. George's dick was just too small for him back then for it to be any fun for him. So, I think it's easy for all of you to see why I'm happy that I don't have that nickname. Now, I'd like to talk about my first show that I ever did. It was at the Roots Cultural Center in downtown Providence, a great venue. They have the Sweet Little Variety Show the second Thursday of every month, which is always a great show. And that was a big night for me for more reasons than one. Not only because it was my first show, but it was the night that I came out of the closet and revealed to the world that I'm straight. Yep, that's right. The guy who came to Rhode Island, got involved in the marriage equality movement, and goes to Gay Bingo on a regular basis, is straight. Now, Gay Bingo raises money for the care of AIDS victims and their families, and also for research for treatment of AIDS. I was telling one of my friends back in my hometown about all that and all the great things they did. But he was only interested in one thing. All he asked me was if any of the men at Gay Bingo ever hit on me. And I told him, well, no, but women don't hit on me. Why would I think men would? But, the real icing on the cake in that whole story is I think about all the gay men I know who tell me about the fact that, before they came out, maybe they had girlfriends in high school or college. Some of them even got married and had kids. And, obviously since then they've gotten divorced. And, the ones I know have good relationships with their kids now. Some of them are even grandfathers. And I'm happy for these guys, I really am. But the thing I keep asking myself is this. What is it with all these gay guys who have had better luck with women than I ever did? Should I pretend to be gay? But then again, maybe I never had anybody fooled. Maybe this isn't a revelation to anybody here. Because, as I said, I go to Gay Bingo regularly, and it was only about the 3rd or 4th time that I was there that the host approached me as I was walking back to my table and said, "You're straight, right?" And I looked at her and I was thinking, well, yeah. But how did you know that? Last time I looked in the mirror, I don't recall seeing the word straight stamped on my forehead. And I was telling one of my friends about this, and his reaction was, well, she probably assumed that no gay man would ever be as slovenly a dresser as you are. And, well, I couldn't really argue with him on that one. Now, one question that I get a lot since I've been living in this part of the country, especially in the wetter months, is why in the world would you have left such a warm climate to come to Rhode Island? And for me, the answer is always, where do I start? Well, the logical place to start, in my opinion, is my hometown. Godwin, North Carolina. Or perhaps more appropriately, God Lost. Now, any of you out there ever listen to Garrison Keillor? Alright, you know his famous line about his fictitious hometown of Lake Wobegon? That's the news from Lake Wobegon, where all the men are good looking, all the women are strong, and all the children are above average. Well, for my hometown, that's the news from Godwin, North Carolina, where all the men are ugly, all the women are psychotic, and all the children are in remedial classes. Now, the population of Godwin, the last I knew, was 112 people. And I don't have to tell any of you that in a town that small, you have to be pretty creative to find means of entertainment. And, one of my great aunts had her old means of it. She always kept 2 years' worth of calendars hanging on the wall behind her bedroom door. And there was a reason for that. Any time that any couple in the area was heard to have gone on a date or was seen together at some public function for the first time, she marked that date with their names on that calendar. Any weddings, she always marked the names of the couple who got married. And now this was the reason for the 2 years' worth of calendars. Because after weddings, for any couple, she would mark the date that their first child was born, count the number of months that had gone by, and then needless to say, if less than 9 months had passed since the wedding, it was quickly all over the area. Now, she lived to be almost 90, and I'll never forget being at the funeral home the night before she was buried. She had 2 daughters who were the ones greeting everybody. And, one of them was always known for being outspoken and didn't always agree with her, but this was one time she really hit the nail on the head. She was standing beside her mother's open casket, and when one person came by and spoke to her, she glanced down at her mother and said, "That's the first time I've seen Mama with her mouth shut in 50 years. But I have to say that her means of entertainment was relatively tame compared to some. There was another small town near Godwin named Wade. And now Wade had a population of between 400 and 500 people. So, compared to Godwin, it was a pretty large city. My dad used to always take me there to get my hair cut when I was a little kid because there was no barber shop in Godwin. But there was also one pretty well-known resident of Wade, a storekeeper there. His name was Leo. And, he was not exactly the most reputable person in the community. Rumor had it he'd even gotten away with murder a couple of times. I don't know. But what he was most known for was his annual Christmas celebrations. His means of celebrating Christmas every year was to ride around the area on Christmas Eve in his pickup and throw lit sticks of dynamite out the window. He kept this up for several years until one year, apparently in attempting to throw a stick out the window, he hit the top of the cab with it, knocked it out of his hand, rolled into the seat of the pickup, and before he could get to it, boom. Needless to say, that was Leo's last Christmas celebration. Now, a story as outlandish as that brings out the poet in me. And now I realize this is the most spoofed poem in the English language, but I feel compelled to share my version of it with you. 'Twas the night before Christmas, and all over Wade, not a bullet was flying, no one wielding a blade. White trash children nestled, all snug in their beds, while visions of BB guns danced in their heads. With me out of work and Dad out on bail, we were downing a six-pack before he went back to jail. When way down the road, there arose such a banging, I sprang to my window to see what was hanging. Flashes of light and window panes humming. There was no doubt now that Leo was coming. Every Yule Eve he did this, because this night he was sodden. Dynamite out his window from Wade down to Godwin. I covered my head and sprawled out on the floor. And then I heard something I hadn't before. A boom 4 times as loud as a hydrogen bomb. The windows all shattered. Blew a hole in the jar. Back out the window, a pickup in flames. Cleo had found his moment of fame. Body parts scattered, all riddled with glass. In death, as in life, his head up his ass. The sheriff and his deputies cleaned up the mix. Leo's last Christmas venture was his greatest success. And the sheriff exclaimed as he drove down the road, "Merry Christmas, friend Leo. You've lightened my load." So yeah, that's my hometown. And you know, I still hear from people there every now and again. You know, and every once in a while it's in jest. You know, I got home from work one night and there was a voicemail message waiting for me. And I listened to it. Well, I knew who it was. I knew perfectly well it was tongue-in-cheek. And, you know, I know the idea of me exaggerating a southern accent. It's downright ludicrous, but I'm going to do it anyway. This was the voice I heard and the message I heard. "Rich Height, you gay-loving, Yankee-fraternizing, scum-sucking lowlife. You know what's good for you, boy. You won't show your face down here no more." So, you know, I listened to this a couple of times, and I'm thinking, not show my face in my hometown anymore. You know, I'm trying to find a negative in that. And in all honesty, I still haven't found one. So, Rhode Island, my adopted home state, I love you, baby.